Hello everyone, today I want to talk about someone incredibly important to me and has helped deliver a lot of this material for the 1 Year Life Challenge, the great, the incomprehensible, incomparable Alan Watts. Hello everyone, you would have seen some quotes during this 1 year series from Alan Watts. You may have even seen some audio. Alan Watts was an incredible individual who helped bring Zen to the Western world, and much more than that. He was a paradigm for humanity, and I'm so excited and grateful to be able to speak about him today. He's been a huge influence on my life, ultimately an influence on the 1 Year Life Challenge, therefore an influence on you, whether you're aware of it or not. So as always, I'm going to begin with a quote, and that quote is, "To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float." Alan Watts. Alan Watts and his Zen understanding of the world was really pivotal. You know, this guy was incredibly popular during the 60s and 70s and helped so many people understand that the war culture, you know, not from 1910, then we went to 1940, we're just murdering. Something had to change, and he was a real luminary to understand that. So for me, I found Alan Watts at the exact right time, because there's no other time to find him. But when I heard this articulate person speak about Eastern concepts from a Western perspective, I wanted to know more, and he really took me down the rabbit hole. He's one of the first people to, when I was staring over the rabbit hole, wanting to understand the true nature of reality and myself more, I feel like he was the guy that bumped me and I fell all the way down. So who is Alan Watts? So Alan Watts was born in London in 1915 at the start of the First World War. So he understood that, you know, from a very early age that humanity had gone on an interesting track. He spent 4 years as a Christian priest. So he studied Christianity, understood theology very well. At that time he became fascinated with the arts of the Far East, studied that, and then moved to San Francisco to teach at the Academy of Asian Arts. So he was a teacher. He often talked to himself about as being an entertainer, because he believed we already knew, we had a knowing, we didn't need to learn anything, we had a knowing, but it was fun to talk about these things, and I love that, and I think that's what this is all about. I have a knowing, and I'm sure you do, that everything we talk about is correct, but we're doing it because it's fun and because we enjoy it. So what is his worldview? So it's profoundly influenced by East Indian philosophies and of Buddhism and Taoism, which is reflected in the Zen poetry and the arts of China and Japan. So he loved China and Japan. Quite often he'd grow his hair long like a samurai and wear, you know, Chinese and Japanese dress, and spend a lot of time with people like Dr. Suzuki and other, you know, Zen luminaries. During his life, you know, he practiced Zen. However, he was quite often, I guess, criticized for not meditating. So by not meditating, he answers very simply in a very Zen way that a cat sits until done sitting and then gets up, stretches and walks away. You know, he was very aware that criticism wasn't helpful, and he had great comebacks for things like that. In the late 60s, he started to become a counterculture celebrity, and he was asked to speak widely at universities across the US and Europe. He wrote several books, one being The Spirit of Zen, one being The Legacy of Asia and Western Man, The Meaning of Happiness, The Way of Zen, Psychotherapy East and West, and The Joyous Cosmology. If you want to read, and if you're, you know, as a 1 year participant, I know that we're aligned, and if you want to really get some more in-depth knowledge, I'd suggest you read some of these books. What were his core teachings? His core teachings are very profound as well. His core teaching was that he was an entertainer. So number one, he was an entertainer. We already know when we don't think, we do the right thing. Therefore, when we talk about thinking, we're kind of leaving that. So he would say, listen, we've already got it, let's just entertain ourselves with knowledge. And I love that concept. It's very non-preachy. 2, spontaneous action. Do things without thinking and without judging, and they'll always be right. How can something be wrong? Well, it can be wrong because you think about it previously in context of a belief system, which is your belief system, not the world's belief system, and then you label it and judge yourself and have guilt. What a waste of time. Act spontaneously, don't judge those things, and you will get back to your core nature. Number 3, the void. This is the hardest thing for Westerners to understand, that Zen in particular talks about the void, which is nothingness, and how nothingness is the true fabric of reality. And we hate this in a materialist way. We're like, no, the fabric of reality has to be something tangible that we can hold on to. But think about it. If this is matter, where did matter come from? Well, it had to come from a void, nowhere. Something has to come. People often say something has to come from somewhere. No, 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 no. For it to exist, it had to come from nowhere, because if it was already there, it didn't come from anywhere. You know what I mean? So the void is something I'll explain in later videos, but was key to Alan Watts. The true self, so that was another one of his core teaching, is who is the observer? Who is the person asking the question? And that is very profound. Knowing that you are not your body, knowing that you're not your words, knowing that you're not your brain is core to his teachings. And finally, probably one of the biggest things he did is he inspired Eckhart Tolle, who now is sort of taking on the legacy of Alan Watts. Everything that Alan Watts said, Eckhart Tolle has said in a even more influential way. And if you like The Power of Now or A New Earth, which are both incredible books, which 30, 40 years from now people will laugh that they weren't taught at school, you will love Alan Watts. Incredibly grateful and proud to talk about this guy today. I really am interested in his soul and his collective energy, and it's great for me to know, and it's great for you to know that someone of this nature came from our atoms, is part of our collective unconscious. We need to align ourselves with more people like Alan Watts and less people like Donald Trump, and ultimately the world will change. Not the external world, but our world, which is the real world, which is the true self. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I'm so glad I got to talk about Alan Watts, which has been a big influence on these videos. Until tomorrow, goodbye.